Ladies and gents, do I have a treat for you? We have the former world champion and arguably the greatest chess player of all time, Magsy Bogues, also known as Magnus Carlsen or Cagnus Marsen, versus the current world champion, Gukesh Domoraju. Now, it's quite an interesting matchup because a lot of people would say, yes, Gukesh is the world champ, but ... Magnus is still alive and still active. So we've got a great game. I'm going to try and make it 20 minutes long because my last game run through was like 50 and no one's going to watch that. So buckle your seatbelt, get ready. It's hot. Right. We've got Magnus with the white pieces. We've got Gukesh with the black pieces. It was a classical game. I don't have the timestamps. In future, I will. But right now, time is of the essence. So, Magnus starts with the move d4, going for the queen's pawn opening. I've played a little bit of myself, Magnus. Fun fact, I've never lost to Magnus Carlsen. So, hey. And we get knight f6, the Indian game. What a surprise. Gukesh, the Indian, playing the Indian game. Huh, crazy. And we get knight c3. Interesting choice there. So, not going for the queen's gambit. Knight c3. Interesting move. Still kind of keeping his options open there, Magnus. He's not really, showing his cards. He's saying, "All right, I'm going to see what you've got in store, and then I'm gonna launch my missiles at you. Let's see what happens." We get d5. Okay, putting a pawn in the center, and we get bishop f4, going for the Chigorin variation of the queen's pawn opening. Very, very interesting style setup. A bit like a London style setup here, which is quite an interesting choice from Magnus. But here, he can do what he can play what he likes. He's arguably the GOAT, although that's up for debate, I guess. And we get c5, as you normally should do in these kind of setups. If your opponent is playing a Chigorin or a Jobava style London, and the knight is blocking the c-pawn, you want to push your c-pawn. That's perfectly normal. Obviously, a lot of you may be thinking, well, what about knight b5? Well, you do have knight a6 to defend that. But yeah, in this kind of setup, you want to get rid of your c5 pawn and then play a6 so that you can plonk the knight on c6. Okay, so what happens? Magnus solidifies in the center. He goes e3. And we get bishop to g4. Interesting move. All standard stuff here. All probably been played before. Nothing crazy. Engines pretty equal. We get bishop e2, blocking the bishop. And we get bishop takes. Okay, fair enough. Taking pretty early on. Going for exchanges pretty early on usually will head to a draw in the middle game, but I haven't seen the entire game yet. I've only seen clips of it. But normally, if you're trading off pretty early on, the more pieces you trade off, the more likely a draw will be. Okay? Wow. I mean, okay, see, this is where a noob like me obviously doesn't understand this. Magnus goes back with the knight he's already developed instead of developing his other knight, i.e. just taking with the knight that's yet to be developed and then getting ready to castle. Magnus takes with the knight on c3. Now, the engine says that queen takes on e2 is actually the best move here, but it's only drawn. And knight c takes on e2 is actually slightly better for black. But okay, it's Magnus. You know what I mean? He's kind of toying with his food at this point. You know, when you're on the African savannah and you see a lion like attack a gazelle and it's still alive and the lion just nibbles at it. That's what Magnus seems to be doing most of the time. Okay. So, we get knight c6, standard developing move, makes sense. Knight f3, obviously, finally developing the last piece, being ready to castle. And we get e6. Again, very, very standard, very, very solid setup here from both players. Not much in it both ways. Magnus has this very interesting knight setup here, which is probably not book theory. But, yeah, interesting position. And we get c3. Going for that little pyramid-style setup we get in a lot of London systems. Very, very solid. And for a positional player like Magnus, who loves positional play, he's playing to his strengths. All very solid, all very positional. He's saying, okay, I'll get you into an endgame, and then I'll turn nothing. I'll get blood out of a stone and turn nothing into something somehow. Nobody knows how he does it. It's a bit like Magnus magic, really. But hey, if you can do it, you play to your strengths, don't you? If you're an end game wizard, you play for end games. If you're a middle game monster, you play for middle games. You can't blame Magnus. He's playing to his own strengths. Okay. Bishop e7, yada yada yada. Knight g3, a little interesting, blocking the bishop out, but hey, okay, fair enough. Castles, and I assume castles. I know we don't. We get queen e2, which throws in a little bit of unknown, saying, am I going to castle queenside or am I going to castle kingside? But ready to castle now, and once castled, it'll just be the king and 2 rooks on the back rank, which is exactly what you want. Okay. And we get h6, saying, wait up here, what's your plan with the bishop? Because this knight is a little loosey-goosey. And Magnus just plays rook d1. Interesting. So we know he's not going to castle long. He's most likely going to castle short. And the best move in this position is actually to go queen a5 for black, putting some pressure down here, instantly going a bit on the attack while king, because obviously Magnus has still got his king in the centre of the board, so you want to prolong that and keep the king in the centre for as long as possible. So the engine says queen a5, put some pressure down here. Maybe you could start a queenside attack while his king's in the centre, and maybe you could launch a decent attack. Okay. Gukesh does play it, because Gukesh is a very, very strong GM, so obviously he knows that. And the best move here for Magnus is actually to play a3. Who would have thought that, huh? And Magnus does play it. Okay, so now he's got the very, very solid pawns. You can take on the centre, but it's very, very well defended with the knights and the rooks. And we've got ourselves a game. It's ever so slightly favoured for black, but not by much. We get rook f to d8, just putting some pressure down here, and you'll assume that this rook on the a file will be coming to the d file to centralise 2 of the very nice rooks. Also contesting for some of the central control, makes some sense, yeah. And we get h4 by Magnus. Now, if you look back in the engine, it is the second best move recommended by the engine, h4. Stopping any potential g5 threats and taking a lot of control over the e5 and the g5 squares in the current position. Magnus has got a lot of control here, but that says a lot about Magnus. He's playing some pretty spicy moves here. He's not yet castled, and he's already played h4, which is a very committal move. Interesting playstyle by Magnus in this game here. I have to admit, that's not something that I've watched quite a lot of Magnus's games on, like Agan Matar's YouTube channel, and that's kind of thrown me off a little bit. I wouldn't really expect that kind of thing from Magnus. He usually plays very positionally solid, but here he's got a bishop on f4 that's a little loose, and now he's got a pawn on h4, a bit of a weird pawn structure over here. But obviously, I mean, Magnus is probably just enjoying his chess a lot more now that he's not trying to be world champion and trying to be, 2900. He's just saying, you know what, I'm here to have fun. I'm just going to play it for the fun of things and just spice things up a little bit. But okay. We get queen a4. Fair enough, yeah. Knight e5. Jump in. And now I know this because obviously I play a similar style setup with the Collie Zuckertort system. If you can get the knight there, taking it is always a little dubious and usually not to be recommended, but in this position it actually is the best move. Knight takes on e5, and I'm assuming that's probably because of the pawn structure and the setup where the bishop currently is. I'm assuming that is actually the best move, which does make sense in this position actually, because normally my bishop wouldn't be on this square. My bishop's somewhere over here on b2, fianchettoed, looking very nice. We get knight takes, and we get bishop takes, of course, not going for the pawn takes, not wanting to double up the pawns and ruin the pawn structure. Get a very nice bishop, and that also now opens up the queen onto this very nice diagonal here, should it open up to some opportunities. Alright, what's cracking? Engine says minus 0.3 for black. Meh, neither here nor there, really. Knight goes back, obviously adding some pressure onto the bishop, but that's standard. And bishop just drops back. Now here, the engine says rook a, c8, as you would, optimize both the rooks, get ready to bust open on a file, either with you know, some kind of c takes on d, or pushing this pawn, just preparing the break because the king is still in the middle of the board, and you would very much like to have some kind of rook c2 ideas, putting some pressure on the queen, occupying the second rank. And I don't know, Magnus's position is a little weird. I'd much prefer black's position. It's a lot more solid. Magnus still hasn't castled and it's move 16, so here, there you go. Okay, we don't get that. Gukesh goes back with the queen here, offering a queen trade. Number one, offering a queen trade against Magnus. What, do you want to go into that endgame? Not sure if you do. I don't know, it seems to me like when people play Magnus, they get they get the jitters, you know what I mean? Oh, it's Magnus, oh. Like, that to me, I said that move like 4 moves ago, that the rook a8 would be coming to c8. I'm not even a GM, I'm a noob. But even I think that would probably be what I'd go for. Keep that queen there, try pop this c-file open somehow, swoop in with the rook, defended by the queen. Even I'm seeing that, and I'm pretty shit, so... But okay, I mean, I'm not playing Magnus. If I was playing Magnus, I'd probably shit my pants as well. But this, to me, cop-out move. Sorry, Gukesh. All love to you, but cop-out. Cop-out move. And Magnus says, nah. Nah, fam. Not today. No queen trade for you. Queen's coming in. Swoops onto that f3 square. Just edging a little closer towards black's juicy king over here. Very nice. It's nice to see that from Magnus. He said, yeah, I could take your queen and double up your pawns and we could go into an endgame, but nah. I'm going for blood. I like to see it. Best move here for black is bishop f8. GM style move, but not played. Instead, we get bishop to d6. Interesting. Now here, the best moves are bishop takes d6 and knight h5. Interesting setup. We get knight h5. Magnus is just, yes, he's on a mad thing. He's on a mad thing. Not even castled against a GM. He's like, nah, we're 80 moves in. I'm not even asked. King's in centre at board. I mean, I don't really know what he's going for. Is he gonna try to do some like rook g1 action and start like playing something like g4, g5, cracking this can of worms open? I mean, I guess that's why he's not castled yet. Yeah. I mean, I guess in theory you could even play rook h3, rook g3 if you want to get banned on chess.com. A lot of players I play who get banned usually play some variation of like rook h3 and supercross. Not saying obviously Magnus is cheating, I'm making a joke. Don't take it serious, Kramnik. It's only a joke, G. Alright. Let's go. He takes. We get queen takes. Was that the best move? It was. Queen takes on f4. And now you've got Gukesh's queen kind of sideline here, not really doing a right lot on holiday, you know, just chilling over here. And Magnus's pieces are starting to collect towards his king. And you don't want to do that. Which is surprising, because if I was Gukesh, I'm thinking, oh, king's in the centre of the board. Let's start popping off an attack. Gukesh was just like, nah, drop the queen back. Let's go for a queen trade. Let's not put the rook here. Let's not crack this can of worms open. I don't know. Seems a bit weird to me, but okay, fair enough. I'm not a GM. It's fair play, you know. I'm not. Can I even talk, really? No. Alright. So here, best move is c takes on d, which I mentioned earlier, because hello, let's start something. Let's get the wheels in motion. But we get e5. God damn. Here, best move d takes on e, but that makes sense, I guess. You are momentarily giving up a pawn, but I guess now the queen has free reign over the 6th rank. You can swoop across, bam, 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 and you're in the game. That makes sense, I get it, but was it one of the best moves? It was not. Although this is only going to depth 27. C takes on D. Oh no, E5. No, sorry, E5 was the second best recommended move, but quite a bit of a difference between C takes on D4 and E5. But E5 was the second best, one of the second best recommended move. Stopping the sideline of the queen, getting it ready to swoop in. D takes on E5 is the best move recommended by the engine here. G3 was the second best recommended move, which is the one that Magnus plays. Which is interesting to me, because I was thinking he was going to go rook h3 and rook g3 and start attacking. But now that square is occupied by the queen, so we can't have any of this, like, nasty pawn launches on this side. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. But I guess also... I guess you do want. Actually, yeah. And there's my new brain blundering again. I guess you do want some kind of a square for this to go to. Because now after G3 is G6 not a move? Yeah, I'm thinking now. Is that not just a move? I mean, I know you can't take it because the pawn's pinned for the meantime, but the knight won't have any squares. A knight on the room is dim, Magnus, but hey, do whatever you want. And we get another offer of a queen trade here, which was not the best move. G6 was the best move, followed shortly by queen to G6. Okay, fair enough. Queen trade again. And Magnus decides, it's time. I've had enough of your pitter-patter. Your chitter-chatter. You offer me 2 queen trades. I'll take this one. Bang. Doubles the pawns. And knight obviously back to G3. That's the only move. You've got to save the knight. Now, best move here for black is rook a c8. Which, yeah, I guess makes sense. Was that an option? It was an option, but third best move according to chess.com's engine. Yeah, this is no supercomputer. This is no crazy engine. So these are the best moves according to chess.com's engine. Bear that in mind. Okay, we get pawn takes, and we get c4. And I always struggle against these kind of setups when they push like this against Queen's Gambit-esque style systems. I always find it rather frustrating to play against. But if you look at the pawn structure, Gukesh has got doubled pawns, a backwards pawn. I guess Magnus is kind of in Candyland here. And now he's up plus 0.4. Magnus likes these kind of, pawn endgames where there are a few weaknesses. Yes, it's probably drawn, but it's Magnus. We get knight back to E2, probably going towards the C3 square. And we get B5. Instantly going on the attack. You assume knight to C3 would come now, so you could target both of these pawns. Knight C3 played. I mean, it says here knight b6 is the best move. Wasn't played. We get knight to f6. Now a lot of you might be thinking, well, hold on, can't you just take on there? Yes, you can, but then of course rooks start coming in, and once you've lost control of your second rank or your 7th rank, shit usually goes south. Pardon my French. Okay. So I'm assuming Magnus didn't take on b5. It's not an engine move, and I'm assuming he didn't do that. We get rook to b1. Yeah, makes sense. Was that one of the best moves? Yeah, that was the best move I can remember the engine. Adding some defense over here. Potential breaks, I guess, on b3. Just playing uber solid. Magnus has not really got any weaknesses. I would definitely slightly prefer white, but again, negligible. And we get knight b8. Rook a8 to b8, counteracting white's rook. Makes sense. And here, the best move is indeed king e2. It is an endgame. The king is one of the most powerful pieces in an endgame. You want to bring it out. Did we get king e2? We didn't. We got pawn to f3. However, that's quite a nice move because now king f2 looks quite juicy. You've controlled all the squares for the knight. And again, Magnus just coming in now and just little by little, bit by bit, he'll just edge that advantage and get blood out of a stone somehow. How? Nobody really knows, but it's the way that the chess world goes, apparently. Okay, so what do you want to do here if you are Gukesh? A5 is the best move for Gukesh. And it is played. See, I hate these kind of things. These kind of pawn versus rook. These endgames give me a headache, and I'm not even playing it. So you imagine you're Gukesh, you're playing arguably the GOAT, time is ticking, and you've got to find out the best move, knowing full well if you make even a slight mistake in an endgame, Magnus will crush your soul. Not easy. That's what we call pressure. Big time. Okay, best move here for Magnus is b4 or king d2, but b4 is quite a bit better than king d2. We get b4, of course we do. Magnus isn't messing about. Now, obviously, if you take, you could take with the rook and put more pressure on the b5 pawn. But c takes on b en passant is actually the best move. We get c takes on b, and we get rook takes on b3. Standard stuff. Standard stuff. b4 going for the break. A takes on b, best move. A takes b. Rook takes b4 is the best move here. We get rook takes b4, obviously, because now you get quite a decent passed pawn there on the a file. And rook takes b4 is the best move here. Magnus doesn't play it. He plays rook a3. Now, the engine says that rook takes b4, a takes b4, and then... no, sorry. My apologies. I'm looking at two different lines. I'm not even dyslexic. Rook takes b4, a takes b4, and knight e2 is good, but better than that is actually just rook to b1. Interestingly enough. Crazy. Bang, check, takes with the knight, and then rook b8. Who would have guessed it? Not me. Okay. We get rook a3, fair play, and we get rook e8, just putting some pressure on that pawn right there. And obviously, of course, now Gukesh has a little open file to play with. You've got to be very careful as to where you put your king. But king to d2 and king to e2 are all fine, because I guess you've got this little burrow square here over on d3. You get king d2. b2 check is the best move. Rook b2 check played. And king d3, like I said, on that little burrow square. Endgame, engine says point. There you go. It is what it is. Let's see what cracks now. Rook takes on g2 is the best move. Obviously, there is the little loosey-goose pawn there. And that will weaken the rest of Magnus's pawns. And it is played. So now Gukesh is up a pawn. Up a pawn against Magnus Carlsen. That's pretty damn good. I'm assuming that rook takes on a5 will come, so that will be short-lived. And rook takes a5 is played. I mean, look at the position. There's a weakness here. You've got a few weak pawns. I mean, both of them have considerable weaknesses, but Magnus is greater at manipulating these style of weaknesses than other players. Here, rook g3 is the best move, and it is played. Adding pressure down here, but also simultaneously adding pressure down here in case this pawn wants to go away. Okay, here it says you have to play... Well, there's three moves, all of which are drawn. Rook f1, knight takes d5, and... Yeah, knight takes d5, said twice, it's that good. So, yeah. Magnus goes for rook f1. Okay, fair enough, this is still a threat. But this is now undefended. And here, Gukesh has two choices, g5 or rook d8. We get g5. H takes g, I assume will be played. H takes g. Rook takes g5. Defending the pawn on d5. Here you can double up rooks. You can play rook b1. Plethora of options, but all of them, the engine says, are complete drawn. So let's just skip through a load of these moves and we'll get to the juicy part. We get double up of the rooks. H5, pushing the past pawn, standard stuff. Rook a8, pinning the rook, going for a rook trade. We get rook takes with check, and king h7. And then we get the break on e4, wanting two connected pass pawns into the centre of the board that Magnus can then push. Okay, that makes sense. Takes, best move. Takes. Boom. So, two pawns versus two pawns. I mean, completely equal material is a dead draw in this position, but you're playing Magnus. You never know. Okay. H4. Going to promote that little pawn into a queen. E5, attacking the knight, asking questions, and also going for your own queen. And Gukesh just leaves it and says, okay, I'm not asked about the knight. I want a queen. See you later. Fair play. Best move here is e takes on f6. We get e takes on f6. And we get h2. Grandmaster level stuff going on the board here. My little new brain can't comprehend. It's still a draw though. So Gukesh has let him have the knight. He's going for the queen. But Magnus plays F7. He says, okay, thanks for the knight, buddy. I'll have a queen as well. And you will be, spaghetti-o, in deep shit. Still a draw, though. With best play, this is a draw. However, I know that on the clocks-wise, the clock situation was low at this point. So, we get rook g3 check, king d2, and here you have to queen the pawn. And Magnus will do the same. We get h1 queen, and we get f8 queen. Now here is the move from the thumbnail. In order to stay in the game here, there is one move and one move only. Pause the video and see if you can find it. This is going to be the pause the video moment. I'll give you 10 seconds, or you can pause the video right now and find the one and only move that it keeps Gukesh in the game for a draw. I'll give you 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The move is rook to g2 check. That is the only move that keeps Gukesh in the game, because then you cut the king off from these two files, pushing the king further into the middle of the board, and you can just check the king into oblivion somehow with some variation I'm unfamiliar with, and that's the only way you can keep in the game. However, that's not what was played. Gukesh played queen to h6 with check, and that is completely losing, and it loses pretty much on the spot. And as we're about to see, Magnus, the G, is going to show us exactly how it's done. So you might be thinking, well, wait up, can't you just continue the attack from this position? Apparently not. Now, you only got one move here that keeps you in the game as white, but of course, Magnus plays it like a G. Another pause the video moment if you want here. There's only one move for Magnus that keeps him in the game, but Magnus probably was pretty calm and collected at this point. You can pause the video here if you want to spot the next move. And I'll give you 10 seconds. I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The move is king to c2. I guess you're moving the king over this way. Because you've got the extra piece now, you are +3 in material. You can always use the knight as a shield or use it to block checks at some point. So, we get king c2, and now it's just +4.4 for Magnus, which is crazy. So you're completely lost, which is crazy. We get queen g6 check, and we get king b2, queen b6 check, and we get king a2, which is crazy, because if you look at the position, you're like, oh bloody hell! I mean, surely there's got to be some attack going on here, but apparently not. I mean, I don't know. To me, it looks like there is, but I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. So here, so we get king a2. I'd be looking at like, jeez, no, I guess not. Yeah, best move here is queen b7. He plays what I would play. Rook g2 check is something I would play. But king a3, and it's drawn now. You run out of checks. The knight is there. Queen. Huh. I mean, yeah. I guess. We do get it. Queen b2 check. These are all moves that I would play, but apparently the edge is like, nah, bro. These are your shit. Because I guess once the king moves, it can run away. If you go here and you take on here, that doesn't come with check, and then Magnus has got some kind of mated net down there. We get king a4, only move. And we get queen takes, and now it's Magnus's turn to have fun, and he's got all the checks. So, we get queen h8 check, king g6, it's +10 now, rook a6 check, f5, f8 check, king e4, and e6 check. And in this position, I'm not sure if Gukesh resigned or if he ran out of time, but he lost. So, tomato, tomato. But I think he would have probably resigned because the engine's telling me that Magnus has mate in 13 and he can probably see that. Craziness. absolute crazy scenes. Is Magnus the GOAT? And is Gukesh a disputed world champion? That's up to you guys to discuss in the chat. You know, in UFC, when they're like, the undisputed, undefeated. I think Gukesh is the world champion, but you could very well say, is he really? He is the disputed world champion. And, yeah. I mean, that's up for you guys to discuss. That's not my opinion. I think a lot of people have been saying that, you know, yeah, he is, but there's Magnus, there's X, there's Y, there's Z. And here we just get displayed a world champion losing to an ex-world champion. Magnus has got to be buzzing with that. But again, was it the Magnus effect? It just always happens. He always seems to get let off all the time, Magnus. But, hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? Guys, if you like the video, like, comment, smash that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.